When we last left off, Starscream had tried to successfully ambush Stratosphere after Air Raid tried to escape. However, Jazz quickly shot him down and now is prepared to engage Starscream. Let's talk about it. Starscream is now on the ground, hurting from his thruster being shot completely out as Stratosphere finally takes off with the rest of the aerial bots, with his gratitude for Jazz pretty much admirable at this point. Now, this is where everything does change. What happens to Starscream? Well, believe it or not, he has no other choice but to really just fight Jazz at this point. And well, it doesn't go well, to say the least. He's outgunned, outmaneuvered, and in all honesty, he can't fly, which was one of his biggest advantages in any fight. So, Starscream is utterly killed at this point. He can't do anything. Jazz was already superior to him in the forest fight at this point, because not only was he allowed to survive, but grow stronger. But considering Jazz has also gotten upgrades at this point, meaning he will also have his own stealth force mode and stuff like that, and with Starscream being unable to fly, this this does them substantially dirtier than the original. This also means that the aerial bots actually survive, with Starscream being killed off here. Now, here's another thing. We actually do have to worry about Megatron. Megatron in this timeline is never discovered because Starscream never brought the mech tech back to his base, which allowed the Autobots to discover him almost immediately, meaning that he doesn't get discovered. Warpath survives, and well, Megatron still has his Decepticon facility, meaning there's more time for him to get repaired, more time for him to get his weapons on and running. And I do say that Megatron does get his repairs done fully. He gets his face restored, but again, he still is in a, I guess you could say, somewhat Dark of the Moon, or sorry, not Dark of the Moon, Revenge of the Fallen like state. So he still has somewhat of his tank form still left. And in all honesty, he wasn't as badly damaged as he was in the original. So he should be back around full power, but he does need a couple things before he pretty much gets fully up and running or more perfect fighting capacity. So Megatron still has his base, meaning Shockwave is never, well, I wouldn't say Shockwave is never released, but there's more time for him to, I guess you could say, get his repairs done as well. Now you might say, wait a minute, how did Shockwave get there? Well, if you guys remember the last part, I had Jazz be able to beat the mess out of him, along with the help of a couple other Autobots. And well, with him alive, this also means that Brawn, Blaze Master, and Armorhide also survive, as well as with Alita 1, Chromia, and RC. Or basically Alita 1, I forgot. She was the only one that actually got killed by Shockwave, meaning Optimus is in a better state of mind. So basically, with Jazz surviving, they just get another, not only another prime level or close to prime level asset, but they also get a member that can honestly take care of himself and take care of his troops. And this pretty much puts the Autobots in a way bigger upper hand than they had in the original. They have aerial bots. They got Warpath. They have just about everybody. While the Decepticons are on a major back foot, but not ultimately. No. Some of the things still happen. With the Decepticons now having a base of operations, this means their operations, well, or other illegal type of stuff is still happening. But now, with having a base of operations, with Soundwave also on Earth, that chapter still plays out relatively the same in Dark of the Moon, they basically get everything they need. And with having more Decepticons around, or, more Decepticon drones and stuff, they actually have an easier time getting some stuff done. This also means that some of the Decepticons I am going to add are from just Dark of the Moon, but know that some of these guys were resurrected by the Allspark or simply still alive after the battle with Egypt. So we already know Bone Crusher was still alive, and Brawl, and whatchamacallit, some of the Constructicons like Long Haul, Payload, and Rampage or Scrapper was still alive and stuff like that. So we'll actually say they are more prominent in this story due to the death of Starscream. So Starscream's death kind of just creates all these different openings for the Decepticon cause to just, I guess you could say, somewhat blossom. but also realize they got a lot more members. So Megatron is more reliant on them than the original. Now, the events of Dark of the Moon, the movie, change drastically as they never found Megatron, meaning the Autobots are searching in different areas and in different locations. So really, the Autobots are at full strength, but they're also in a state where they don't know where Megatron is. And Megatron is happy to keep it that way, at least for the moment. However, this is where Shockwave does get discovered during one of his raids towards the whatchamacallit, that base or that old and abandoned facility in Dark of the Moon, with that man still dying to Laserbeak. So, believe it or not, everything does go the same, with even Jazz noting that the humans right now are just simply untrustworthy because they kept something Cybertronian of their culture, of something of their past, from them. Now, what also happens here is the fact that Shockwave is around, so he needs to address that. And with having more Autobots in this timeline, and this is where I am going to add some new Autobots or some old ones as well. With the fact that the Autobots are more at full power, we actually get to see Blaze Master, who is another aerial bot that transforms into a helicopter, Armorhide, who transforms into a military Hummer, and then we also have Armorhide turns into a military Hummer, and then there's Brawn, who turns into a... Dang, that's actually interesting, because Brawn actually turns into the military Hummer. So switch that around, and we have Armorhide as well, who also turns into a military truck as well. So it's very interesting at this point. So yeah, Armorhide, Brawn, Blaze Master, and this time I will add Jolt to it. So right now, Megatron is actually conducting an operations in his base, and believe it or not, this is where I would say they have pretty much went back and forth to the moon and pretty much got in some of the pillars at this point, so that when they, recruit Sentinel and stuff, they ultimately have someone or have the operations or the pillars pretty much at ready. So with that being said, how does the rest of Dark of the Moon go? Well, the Autobots do manage to go to the moon, and after discovering the fact that the Ark is still there, they actually do bring back Sentinel. And this is where Jazz simply notes that having another Prime on the team would definitely affect things greatly for the morale, and maybe end the war far quicker. Now, Sentinel gets up just like in the original and does tackle Optimus, or for comic readers like myself, uppercut the mess out of Optimus and just sends him flying. And this is actually pretty interesting because with more Autobots around, this means Ironhide and Jazz do have to calm everyone before they start, jumping the absolute mess out of Sentinel here. So with Sentinel back online, he does get his vehicle mode and does go around touring Earth along with Optimus, realizing that the planet has changed, the Autobots have changed, and they're stronger than what they were before. So Sentinel is kind of thinking about maybe not betraying them because they have so much more going for them in this timeline right now. So basically, yeah, they they got a lot more going for them than the original. And well, at this point, I do think that Megatron is going to have to remain hidden, at least for the moment. Now, what about the highway chase? Does this happen? Believe it or not, yeah, it still does. Sam discovers the Decepticons are coming from Sentinel Prime, and Optimus sends the team of Jazz leads a team of Bumblebee, Sideswipe, Mirage, and Jolt, along with Smokescreen and Cliffjumper. So there are actually 7 Autobots in this timeline, rather than, Jazz is 1, Bumblebee, Mirage, Sideswipe, Jolt, Smokescreen, Cliffjumper. Yeah, there are 7 Autobots in this timeline, basically alongside Sentinel, as well as something else. The Decepticons also have more members at this time, as we're giving other members a time to shine. This is where we actually see the Dreads along with Bone Crusher and Barricade simply driving down after Sentinel Prime. So again, with a much more powerful ranks in this one, and we already know how tough Bone Crusher was, able to just cause massive destruction. However, they keep pushing Sentinel in a certain direction where the Autobots do try to use their Stealth Force form, but they're trying to, well, avoid civilian casualties on the road on their end. And this is where Jazz simply tells them, just drive through it. So they actually do use their stealth force forms to maneuver around or to flip over, if not swerve through all these cars and stuff. And this is where Jolt takes note that, where are they going? They seem to be specifically going somewhere, and, well, it's not towards the area we need him. And this is where Brawl comes into view. Again, kind of repeating the same scene from Dark of the Moon, or sorry, not Dark of the Moon, the 07 movie, where he does appear just kind of out of nowhere and in a heavily populated area and starts firing upon the Autobots. This causes them to actually think, and Jazz actually notes to the rest of the Autobots that they're going to need some heavier equipment. So Optimus sends out Warpath to go ahead and help them with Brawl, but right now they do have to maintain the distance with Sentinel. But seeing as that is not going to be a thing with all of with Brawl there, as well as knowing that they have to be able to deal with Bone Crusher, Jazz breaks off and actually does the same maneuver he did against Brawl, pulling his cannon aside to an uninhabited area and causing him to transform. However, with a much stronger Jazz around, he's actually able to maintain not only the balance, but able to grip Brawl a lot longer, or grapple with him a lot longer here before he is utterly thrown off. However, he's able to get his balance pretty quickly by maneuvering himself or just simply flipping backwards and just letting gravity do the rest, catching himself and then proceeding to go at it with Brawl. And then when Brawl thinks he just has a good opening where he's about to unleash all his weaponry, he gets shot right through his back. Now, this doesn't kill him. Again, this is still Brawl, but the weaponry is unlike anything before, and this is where he turns his back to see Warpath. Warpath transforms into his robot form and begins to lay into Brawl with basically everything, not holding back a single bullet or missile. He doesn't miss even a single shot. He makes sure that each clip is emptied into Brawl. And with Jazz on the other side kind of just bombarding him with his upgraded Crescent Cannon or his Stealth Force mode, this basically just shreds Brawl to ribbons. So that's pretty much done. And this is where he contacts the others, asking how they're doing. And this is where we actually see Cliffjumper and Mirage engaging in a battle with Bone Crusher, just using their speed and their own, Cliffjumper respectively has energy blades, while Mirage has his own. And they're basically getting the upper hand and do manage to kill Bone Crusher, while Smokescreen is able to subdue and even kill Barricade. However, that leaves Bumblebee and Jolt with the Dreads. And realizing they're not going to be able to make it in time, this is where Ironhide actually makes a surprise appearance and actually rams into them full force and knocks all three Dreads off. And this is, off course, and sends them hurtling in different directions. So yeah, Ironhide still gets that moment. This is where Bumblebee and Jolt actually catch up, and we actually get a 3v3, meaning Bumblebee kills one, Jolt kills one by wrapping its whip around its neck, flinging it over his shoulder, and then electrocuting the mess out of it until it basically drains the energy out of it until it's, lifeless. Either way, Jolt's pretty overpowered in most continuities anyway, so it really doesn't matter. And then this is where Ironhide pretty much just kills one by flipping it over and just crushing it like it's nothing more than a bug. So yeah, the Autobots just win this battle like it's absolutely nothing, with obviously no casualties whatsoever. Or at least so they think. Sentinel gets back to the base just like in the original. However, with the Autobots still kind of surveying the area and wondering what the heck is going on, Sentinel decides to bide his time, waiting till he is close enough to the pillars and then strikes from the inside out. The Autobots that are there do try to stop him. These Autobots being Armorhide, Brawn, and Blazemaster. And I'll tell you this, they put up one heck of a good fight against Sentinel, along with some Nest forces. However, at the end of the day, Sentinel is still a Prime. He is still a powerful entity. However, I would say this. They make him, or they press him so much that he has no choice but to use his rust gun on all three of them. And this causes them to, well, unfortunately, die. They have no way of really countering that at all. And this is where Sentinel does manage to, get away with the pillar, just like in the original, or the control pillar. And when Jazz gets back, he is utterly horrified at what happened, saying, what's happened? Did we just get betrayed by our own? And Optimus simply just looks down in sadness at the fact that his own mentor, his father figure, is working with the Decepticons. And that hurts, that hurts. That's basically his papa, his everything, his dad and stuff like that. And he's working with the Decepticons. He didn't see that coming, but obviously Optimus still gets the blame, how it's all his fault for, all this destruction and stuff. And Jazz goes to defend him, but he tells him no, this is his fault. He should have known his mentor was always off. And this is where Jazz simply states, nah, Optimus, you ain't got to take that. I mean, ain't nobody know he was going to betray us like that. No one did. Not even you and all your wisdom could have seen that Sentinel was going to betray us like we were just, like we were nothing to him. We don't know what could have happened. But unfortunately, just like in the original, the Autobots do have to go and track down Sentinel, with the team being, again, the 7 I said earlier: Jazz, Sideswipe, Mirage, Bumblebee, Cliffjumper, and Smokescreen, along with Optimus, and in this timeline, Ironhide, because Ironhide is still alive. Now, when the Decepticons pretty much come through the portal, Jazz actually has the Autobots take him down. Believe it or not, this is actually pretty effective, with them actually powering, or pretty much partnering up in teams of 2, if not 3. And with that being able to happen, Optimus is able to engage Sentinel. And well, when Sentinel gets the upper hand, this is where Ironhide comes in, charging and shooting at him, trying to get him off Optimus. However, Sentinel utilizes his shield and shield bashes Ironhide. This is where Megatron tries to take the opportunity to kill him. However, Optimus tries to intervene, but Sentinel tackles him and pins him down, telling him, let him die. And so, with Ironhide already being staggered from Sentinel Prime's blow, Megatron takes the opportunity to utilize his fusion cannon and kills Ironhide with 2 shots. Kind of like he did in the original, except this time, Ironhide doesn't rust away. And with the other Autobots seeing this, Optimus tells them they have to retreat. They need to retreat now. And so, even though they took out a large majority of the Decepticons, there's still more coming. And they just keep on coming. And unfortunately, well, they have to, they gotta retreat. So, pretty much, unfortunately, Ironhide does die. And it's kind of due to a combination of both Sentinel Prime and Megatron. So, in all honesty, he essentially got jumped. I just thought that would be a pretty good way to kill Ironhide. The fact that he was just, jumped by 2 high-ranking members. And so, when everything calms down and Megatron and Sentinel both give their operations, Sentinel cannot bully Megatron this timeline. No. Megatron is in a much more healthier and less weaker position. He doesn't have to be so subservient or so appeasing to Sentinel. But Sentinel can't really put hands on him, as that would honestly just cause another, fight on his hands that he probably won't be able to win. So, yeah, Megatron doesn't get bullied or G-checked by someone like Sentinel. However, when the Autobots are about to leave Earth, there's a lot more of them, as we still have the aerial bots and they still have Stratosphere. So instead of actually, with Starscream pretty much dead in this timeline, another Seeker kinda has to be the one to take the place. And Well, let's actually talk about this. Before they leave, Jazz pretty much looks at Optimus saying that, are we really gonna let humanity trust the enemy? To which Optimus says humanity made their choice. There's nothing they can do. However, when they leave and fly off into the stratosphere, no pun intended on stratosphere, this is where Thundercracker appears. And stratosphere is ultimately, yeah, killed in this instance, with the Autobots simply dying or appearing to have died here. And this is where we also get the invasion of Chicago. However, something different does happen. We actually do see the Autobots looking on from a distance as the invasion of Chicago commences, with RC and Alita both asking Optimus if this is really what they should be doing. However, Jazz does simply interject, saying that humanity does have to learn some way. And unfortunately, they may not even learn from this. Why are we still helping them? And this is where Optimus simply states, because it's the right thing to do. And that's where we're going to leave it off.